अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. Okay, I thought for this camp, at least this first weekend session, I will do this topic from the Taittiriya. Okay, second only. It starts by saying, Brahmavid apnoti param. Okay. Brahmavid apnoti param. The knower of Brahman gains the absolute. What do you mean by param? By param, you mean parama purushartha, moksha. By knowing Brahman, you will gain moksha. In other words, can you, the co-host, just see that I can see some of the people? My screen only I am dominant there.
Okay. It's been changed.
I can't see anybody else.
It's been changed, so I'll have to unspot you then.
Yes, this other one.
Swamiji, you will also have to increase your volume.
What is that?
You have to increase your volume.
Sorry, I can't hear you clearly at all. I have to increase the volume. Is this not loud enough? Audio has to be louder. Well, I think this is the maximum audio I can get on this. Okay. Can you all hear me or you can't hear me at all? I think you need to use earphones or what? Okay. I hope this is better. Is this better? Better. Okay. 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 Good. So now when we say Brahmavid apnoti param, okay, obviously knowing Brahman will gain you moksha. That means knowledge of Brahman is presented as what is necessary for moksha. Okay. Well, I think I am getting moksha from all my participants. I can't see a single one. What view? Okay, okay, okay. Gallery view, okay. Yes, yes, you are right. Thank you. I am also new to the technology, getting used to it. Now at least I feel that I am in a camp. It's worth struggling to use a laptop. Otherwise, I would have just used a phone. Okay. Anyway, so Brahma Jnanam is presented as the means for moksha. Brahma Jnanam is the means for moksha. That's great. Then the question will be, how is Brahma Jnanam the means for moksha? Okay. Naturally, every human, what is moksha? Freedom from a sense of limitations is moksha. We have seen that. I'm sure all of you are familiar with that much. There's no doubt on that. Therefore, if freedom from your sense of limitation is moksha, it cannot happen unless you gain something which is limitlessness itself. Because in all finite gains, every gain involves a loss. Of course, every loss involves a gain as well. Okay? In every gain, there is a loss because there is a price to be paid. There is nothing like a free meal. You always pay a price for it. You gained marriage, the status of a married person. You lost the freedom of being single. So there is always a gain and loss in everything. Unavoidable. Therefore, you will be satisfied only if you gain something where there is no loss involved. Now that is going to be a funny position. Why? Is there a gain like that? Is there any gain where you can gain without losing? The only possibility is if you gain something which includes everything in itself, then it is feasible. That means what? You have to gain a limitless entity. You have to gain something that is limitlessness itself. In fact, that is the word meaning of Brahman. That is the word meaning of Brahman. Why? Because Brihatvad Brahmana. From Brihadatu, which is actually an adjective. Okay? Brihat, in the sense of bigness, which is an adjective defining a noun. You have made it itself into a noun. Look at the beauty of that way it is being done. Okay? Look at the beauty of it being done. Brihat, which is an adjective, qualifying a noun, but the noun also limits the adjective. When you say big mosquito and big elephant, the sizes are very different. So the bigness is determined by the noun that follows. Now, from the adjective itself, we are making a noun. That means what? The big. How big? With no noun to limit it. With no noun to limit it. That means what? Limitlessly big. That which is big. The biggest you can think of. The biggest you cannot think of. Okay. Is called Brahman. That means you gain that there is nothing to be lost. Why? If it has to be limitlessly big, it has to include you into the picture. Okay, how am I going to gain that Brahman? No. You can't be like Hagar the horrible. Remember the story of Hagar, the comic strip? He tells his wife, I'm going for a raid to Europe. He's a Viking. So I'm going for a raid to Europe. Do you want anything from there? I'll get it for you. So his wife is drinking tea very elegantly. She says, well, if you are going to Europe and you're going to France, you might as well pick up some culture. Out comes a sword. Don't worry, baby. If it is there, I'll get it for you. You cannot get culture like that. That's not how you gain culture. Similarly, the limitless is not something that you can achieve. Moksha is not a castle that you can storm. Why? It is limitless. And all actions, the result of all actions are limited because all actions are limited. All actions are conditioned by time and space. Therefore, the result will also be conditioned by time and space. But the pramana, the Shruti is saying Brahmavidananda param. It made it very clear actually that what? The limitless is not gained by action. Because the limitless, it has to include me. The limitless exists in and around everything. It has to be recognized, known. Therefore, from a question of gaining something, gaining moksha, the method of gaining here is in terms of knowing. That's why the Upanishad says, Brahmavid, the one who knows Brahman, gains moksha. To know the limitlessness is to be the limitlessness. To know the limitlessness is to gain the limitlessness. Knowledge itself is the end. Now, this is one place where many people struggle. Because in our life, we are used to achieving things by doing a lot. All through life, if you notice, right from your childhood onwards. You discovered that if you want to get something, you have to do something. Karma phala comes only if you have done the karma. Never anything that you want, you have to work for it. We left our books of fairy tales, etc. behind. Santa Claus is discovered as a myth. By the time we are 7, 8, we discover it's a myth. Even in those fairy tales, fairies come and help you. Fairy godmother comes and helps you, but you still have to do things. You will get some grace. That's grace coming in. Ishvara's grace is represented as a fairy godmother, etc. But you still have to do. Those who have attended my life strategies workshop, life rewards action. It doesn't reward how good you are, how much you know, etc. Yeah. You may know everything about startups. You are an expert. What are you doing now? Nothing. What are you going to gain? Nothing. So in our life, this is our orientation. That if I want to gain something, I have to do something, which is a very beautiful orientation for everything in life, but moksha. Because in life, people expect just because they are good human beings, automatically they'll get everything in life. No. That won't happen. Ask all your fellow campmates who are there right here, who are achievers, how much they had to struggle over their business or their work, etc. I know some of your stories, you have shared them with me. I have seen it also. How much you have to work and struggle to achieve certain things, which is beautiful as far as life is concerned. And this orientation we bring into moksha as well. Okay, Swamiji, what should I do? I will, and the Upanishad says, and I echo that in the class, you have to know. Acha, I have to know, na? Sun ke jayega. That also doesn't help. You have to know. Sun ke jayega to kuch nahi paayega. My grand guru Swami Taranandagiri used to say that, हाँ इन लोग तो बराबर पढ़ा है. They studied under me. And what about these people? हाँ सुन के गया. You would say that's very, very open and cut and dry about it. सुन के गया. They listened and went. They understood or not, God knows. They don't know anyway. God knows. Therefore, this type of functioning, okay, to listen means that knowledge has become you. This is important to get this also before we go into the thing. Okay? That the knowledge and you are one. Knowledge does not stay in some corner of your mind. It's not in some corner of your mind, locked up. That knowledge is not going to help you even though it's right there in your mind. Swami Chinmayanji, who inspired me a lot in my younger days, even now, he used to say something very beautifully. What has gone in through the ears should sink into the heart. Otherwise, it will leak from the mouth. A leak from the mouth. This is to stay for all of us full-timers, okay? So don't become a tape recorder those days. Nowadays, okay, don't become a CD-ROM. Make it yours. That is why it gives, Vedanta gives you a list of qualification, etc. to take care of. And to live a life of integrity, etc. To live in simple. One of the biggest preparation for this is to live by what you know. Very simple. A simple example for this. According to the principles of Ayurveda, in your diet, you have to have all the pancharasas, including sweet. In your regular diet, you need to have it. At the same time, you know that sweets are not very healthy to have. So, first of all, how do you gain that clarity? Okay? Our sugar consumption has gone up phenomenally over the last 100 years. exercise has come down over the last 100 years. At the same time, principles of a good diet involves having sweet. So first you need this clarity itself. How do you reconcile these two things? How do you reconcile that? And how do you bring it into your life? Yes, too much of sweet is a problem. You are not supposed to fill your stomach with sweets. Your sweets are meant for your tongue to get the saliva flowing. Therefore, eat sweets for your tongue and eat other things for your stomach and for your health. So, the diet is also taken care of, the health is also taken care of. This is knowledge. Now, this knowledge, you have resolved the apparent contradictions that are there. The apparent contradictions that are there are resolved. Now, one needs to bring it into one's life. Get it? You have to live by what you know. No? Swamiji, I am on a diet, I will not touch sweets. For short periods, that's okay. For a short period of time, that's okay. But people are on diets permanently all their lives. For what? I don't know. Eat healthy. A new trend now. Eat healthy. Now, what is healthy? Again, nobody knows. That's a different thing. So, I am very happy. Eat sweets. I can eat it morning, afternoon, night. I don't have a sweet tooth. I have 32 sweet teeth. In spite of the fact that a couple of them have been knocked off. But there is where you need to balance it out. And now look at it. You are living by that knowledge. A little bit of sweet. With every meal, a little bit. Little bit is really little bit, okay? One piece of chocolate. Okay. Or a piece of jaggery. That's enough. Because for the tongue, remember? It's for the tongue. So now, you live by what you know. I am giving one example. The same has to be extended with every knowledge of yours. Your understanding of hygiene. Oh, now we are going overboard with the hygiene part of it. Now we are going overboard with the hygiene part of it because of our fear of corona. No, learn to live in courage, not in fear. Not in fear. Learn to live in courage. Yeah. With certain precautions, not fear. I know how many people in the lockdown were looking forward in Bombay. Where can we get a nice vada pav? Yaar, vada pav nahi milta. Because no restaurant sells them a vada pav. Then I used to tell them, I know one place. Hygienic, safe. Really? But I avoid the chutney because I am not sure about the quality of the chutney they use. अरे यार फिर वड़ा पाव में मजा क्या है? Are you living by what you know? It's a small thing, not a big thing. Go have that chutney and vada pav and eat some ajwain on top of it, you're okay. I'm not saying no to that. But do that. You know something, then follow that. Eat the ajwain. अरे वड़ा पाव का टेस्ट निकल जाएगा. You're supposed to rinse your mouth anyway. And you see how in small things itself we don't live by what we know. We know about hygiene. Don't follow it. My Belpuri wala is fine. Why? He uses Bisleri water for chutney also. What? Be honest to yourself. Yeah, I am breaking it. Yeah. But when we are doing these small things, once in a way it's okay. You don't have to be, because you are a student of Vedanta doesn't mean you stop having fun in life. If you stop having fun in life, there is something wrong with your pleasure centers of the brain. Okay. Once in a way, everything is okay. Doesn't matter. But what I'm trying to say is, if you don't live by what you know, when it comes to Vedanta, it will be the same thing. Knowledge will remain in one corner. You are creating a dichotomy between the knower and the doer. The knower who knows things, and that doesn't come into your life. That doesn't come into your life. Since it doesn't come into your life, knowledge is in one corner. Therefore, you will not be able to call yourself Brahmavid. Anyway, now even if I give somebody sannyasa, I can't call them Brahmavid officially. That name is taken now. What to do? Until my samadhi, that name is taken. Okay. After my samadhi, that name can be given. Somebody else can give it. That's okay. I can't. Therefore, if this integration of personality is there, then knowing itself is moksha. Okay, great. What is that Brahman? I want to know. What is this thing that you are calling Brahman? Yeah, what is it that you are saying Brahman? Tell me. I want to know. Can you describe it for me? Is infinite. Can you describe the infinite? Can you see? Can you describe the infinite? Because the moment you describe it, it will become finite. Can you describe its qualities? If it has qualities, it will become finite. If you describe its qualities, again it becomes finite, because the opposite quality it cannot have. No, Swamiji, this has got both opposite qualities. That's a contradiction in terms. Something cannot be hot and cold at the same time. Swamiji, my old girlfriend was like that. Why? She was hot but cold-hearted. It is not the same thing. You are talking about a person who is made up of parts then. A physical attribute, an emotional attribute. Not the same. Not the same. I am saying all this because all these doubts can there be in your minds. I want to preempt those things coming up. So you cannot have opposite qualities. And any quality is finite, limited anyway. So you cannot have qualities for this. Alright, maybe Swamiji you can define it. To define the truth is to defile the truth. I mean, the Westerners quoted back to us, we quoted it to them before that. Because for any definition you need a framework. Without a framework there is no definition. Look at all the definitions you studied in science under these conditions. In this case, gravity is like this, or under this at 32 feet at what you call sea level, you will define the conditions. So any definition will have to be under a condition. So no definition will also work. Definitions will not work. No definition will work. No, you can't use an infinite word anyway. There is no infinite word. A series of words do not make it infinite. Makes it finite only. 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. It's a finite series. Even though in mathematics you may call it infinite series, it's not really infinite. It's a finite series. Somebody said, why are we talking Vedanta? Might as well close our books and go, khao, piyo, maja karo. Weekend hai. It's a weekend. Why are we doing all these things? Now here comes the thing. In the way a definition is defined in Sanskrit. Okay. In Sanskrit, not only things are defined, definitions are also defined. Okay. Because you have to define what is the definition to know it. No? Without defining a definition, how do you know it? What a definition is? It's a little bit different from the way we use it in English. I may not have said this to you before. Though I use the definitions often. Iterebhyah sarvebhyah vyavartakam lakshanam. Lakshana means definition. And what is that? To understand a thing independent of everything else. To point out a thing independent of everything else. Like this person, illiterate guy, doesn't know anything. He sees a chain, a bangle, a ring, a nose ring, a earring, a bracelet, a kamarband. All this. He sees. All this is spread out. So what is that? Each one he sees. Oh yes. Yes. I seen it in that movie. Yes, nose ring my wife wears. Okay. Now, you have to make him understand what is gold. So you have to now point out, by whatever means you use, gold as independent of all these ornaments or not. Even though all these ornaments are made of gold, remember, all these ornaments are made of gold, but for this guy's understanding, you have to point out gold as existing independent of all these. By whatever way you do it, think back to how you understood gold, then you will get it. Itrebhyah sarvebhyah vyavartakam. You understood it as independent from all these things. These things are not independent of gold, but gold is independent of all this. If necessary, you may have to show him a chunk of gold. It is from this, all this has come. Can you feel it? The same thing. Okay. You just have to point out. It as independent from everything else. And later on, for him to really gain a complete understanding of gold, he has to understand that all these have come from gold. Otherwise, understanding of gold is incomplete. He will think what is shown as a biscuit is gold, everything else is chain, bangle, ring, etc. So both the things have to happen. He has to see gold as independent of everything and has to see that everything else is nothing but a manifestation of gold. Only then his understanding of gold is complete. Right or wrong? Not if you are getting it. Okay. Yeah. So this is the condition for Brahman also. Because if it is limitless, it is in and through everything. Remember, Brahman has been defined as Brahman. The word itself implies that. The word itself implies it's infinite. Implies. By the very meaning of the word. The etymological meaning of the word implies that. Now we have to see the definition. How this Brahman is going to be defined. Obviously, like how that gold could not be defined as another thing, Brahman also cannot be defined as another thing. It is independent of all things, that is true. So first you need to point out the independent nature of the thing. What is that? To point out gold as independent, you still had to use a form of gold or not use a form of gold. A form of gold was not shaped into any of the ornaments, but still a chunk of gold had to be used. So similarly, the Upanishad takes the words that are known to you, like the ornaments were known to you. The Upanishad takes these words which are known to you and reveals what is not known. Same methodology. Doesn't change anything. The same process. Swamiji, are you saying that through finite words you are revealing the infinite? Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Through finite words, you are revealing the infinite. Yep. Swamiji, in gold it is different, na? It's finite thing. Correct. That's why I can take a chunk of gold and show it to you here. This is it. I can do that. Here also I can do it. You want to say you're going to take a chunk of Brahman and show it to me? Yes. I think there are about 80 chunks of Brahman right here. Okay. There are about 80 chunks of Brahman right here. 108 as far as the count is concerned, but I don't know how many are really attending. There were 130 people registered. And some registered at 6 o'clock in the morning today. I don't know what they were thinking of, what they were sleeping of the whole day, a week. Anyway, I'm good there. Whoever's there is there. Okay. So, since there are so many chunks of Brahman here, it is easy to do that. When I was describing gold, I didn't have so many chunks of gold. There's no golden ornament also anywhere around. Okay. But here, because remember, in every ornament there is gold. Of course, assuming, of course, we are talking about golden ornaments. Okay. Similarly, in everything, remember, because Brahman is infinite, In everything it has to be there. Since Brahman is infinite, it has to be there in everything. And that is the beauty of it. That is what makes it possible for the teaching to take place. Otherwise, it just be not possible. Through finite words, you'll never be able to reveal the infinite. Yeah. So, now we have an interesting point here. Okay. You have to know Brahman. By the etymological meaning of the word Brahman, your understanding it is something limitlessly big, it is everywhere. And that part is important to get, that it is everywhere. Because limitlessly big. Right now, many of you are sitting in your, those who are from Bombay, are sitting in your living room or bedroom, some of you, from what I can see of the background. Is Bombay in your room or not there in your room? It is there in your room, no? You mean to say the city of Bombay is in your room? Yes, it is there. Because your room is not apart from the city of Bombay. Brihan Mumbai Nagara Palika. Those who are outside Bombay, okay, India. Those who are outside India, the world. Because I can see some participants from UK and everything. Yeah. So there we are. So look at the beautiful position we are in now. These are the nuances of understanding that one needs to pay attention to, okay? For clarity. Okay, here we are. Now I have to know Brahman. For that you have to define it as independent of everything. And you have to show afterwards that everything is not independent of Brahman. Only then it will become the big, the limitless. Alright. So we have to use a chunk of Brahman to indicate it now. Okay. So we are going to define it. The Upanishad defines it by saying Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Brahman is Satyam Jnanam Anantam. And Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam. Who understands that in the Buddhi Guha, in the Hridaya Guha, as the core of themselves, who understands that So Ashnute Sarvan Kaman Saha. He is fulfilled. All his desires are fulfilled. Meaning, he is Ananda Swarupaha. Ananda Swarupaha is. That's great. If he is Ananda Swarupaha, now will be the interesting question. If Brahmavid apnoti param you are talking about, and Brahman is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahman. Brahman is Satyam Jnanam Anantam. We have to understand each. You have to understand the words. Without understanding the words, how do you understand what is Brahman? Therefore, the word Satyam, the word Jnanam, the word Anantam. Now, another thing to point out is, okay, can these words be used in an adjectival sense? Because generally, Brahman is a noun and Satyam Jnanam Anantam becomes verbs. becomes verbs or adjectives. Adjectives, okay? Yeah. I'm just seeing whether people are still feeling sleepy after all, Weekend. Got up early morning, 8 o'clock for the first lecture. So, can it be used as adjectives? If you look at the formation of the word, they are all used as nouns. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. They are not adjectives. So, how many things are there? Only one Brahman. How many things are there? Only one Brahman. But now you have 3 words, 3 nouns telling me about Brahman. ये गड़बड़ हो जाता है. What does it mean? Okay. 3 words telling about Brahman. Yeah. And like how you have one word which will control everything, the word Anantam is a controlling word. Okay. Those of you who expect me to handle it like Samanadikaranam, etc., you are in for a surprise. I am not doing it like that. This is another way of doing it. Okay. Those of you who have heard me before, and many of you have heard me doing this Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam for a long, in many ways. All of them have been through as a Mahavakya, as a using Samanadikaranam, then how Visheshna Vishesha Bhava is not possible, and therefore you go for Lakshana, etc., etc., etc. I am doing this without any technicalities because I want you all to be clear. Technicalities help clarity, that is true, but sometimes you get bogged down in the technicalities and you think you understood. I don't want that to happen. So now you have one word Anantam. Now all these words, when they are used, okay, and they are used for one entity which is partless, because the infinite is partless. It is not like that cold-hearted person with a hot personality. No, it's not like that. There is parts. Emotions are something, body is anything, knowledge is something else. Like this girl came and told me, Swamiji, go to the gym, there are such hot guys there, but all dumb. I said, yeah, that's another possibility. Another possibility. Yeah. Because a person is made up of parts. Therefore it is possible. Here it is one thing not made up of parts. Therefore all the meanings have to be in harmony. It cannot be in disharmony. All the meanings will have to be in harmony. Can you see what all goes behind the understanding now? All right, all the meanings have to be in harmony. Okay. So you have the simple definition, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. All right, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam I have. How do I start understanding it? Since all of them have to be in harmony, obviously, what is Satyam will have to be Jnanam, what is Jnanam will have to be Anantam, and what is Anantam will have to be Satyam. Correct? All of them have to be in harmony. In harmony means what? They have to mean one and the same thing. It's not like hot and dumb or hot and cold. It is not like that. It is very clear. It has to be talking about one thing. Even if it is talking about that one thing, then whatever is known as Satyam will have to be Anantam. Satyam, the term is used Bhu Satyayam. In the sense of any existing thing is called Satyam. Anything that you can take as real, as against anything that you will take as false. Mirage water is false. The sand is real. So the word Satyam, okay, will be used for that. Can be used for that in normal literature. But this Satyam also has to be Jnanam, also has to be Anantam. That's a tall order. I don't know anything like that. Similarly, Jnanam can be used for knowledge, most simplest. Jnanam, knowledge. Simple translation. It can be used for Nyayati Aneneti. By this it is known. So it can be used for my buddhi. It can be used as Jnata iti Jnanam. As the knower it can be used. All these meanings are, and all these are existing things. But none of them is Anantam. Knower known knowledge is not Anantam. It can be known for an object of knowledge, also can be used as Jnana. Nyayati iti, that which is known. But none of them is Anantam. So I don't know any Jnanam which is Anantam. I don't know any existence Satyam which is Anantam. Then what is this word Anantam? Desha Kala Rahitam. That which is not conditioned by time and space. That also I don't know. That also I don't know. I seem to have some experience of that, not being conditioned by time and space and deep sleep. But it is conditioned because I have to get up in the morning. It is nice to get up in the morning, early morning, nice, yeah. But it's nicer to stay in bed. I'm sure there are many here who will agree with that. It's nice to get up in the morning, but nicer to stay in bed. So ये problem हो गया अभी. You have used a definition, all right, Satyam Jnanam Anantam for Brahman, but not conveying much to me. It's not conveying much. It's like it's as good, almost as good as saying, what is Brahman? Gagagugang. Gagagugang, what is that? My teacher's example, very famous. What is that? Oh, that is Lodolodang. What does it mean? Don't ask me, I don't know. But imagine these words used over time, again and again and again. Let us say, these terms were used over and over and over again. A time will come when you say Brahman, yes, Lodolodang. People are not there right then say it. They have familiarity without understanding. You're familiar, but there's no real understanding. So the familiarity is mistaken for understanding. That's why everyone will say, Atma, Sachidananda, Sachidananda. And they'll make a bhajan out of it. Sachidananda Guru, Sachidananda. Sachidananda is not a something to be sung. Sachidananda is something to be understood. Don't make a bhajan out of it. But that's how you gain familiarity. Words still don't make sense. It doesn't make sense. How does it make sense? And I hear translations also. Existence, knowledge, bliss. The moment I hear that, I know the person is blissfully ignorant. So, understand this. These are the inherent limitations of words, and if you don't take the inherent limitations of the word into account, your understanding will not be good enough. One has to take this into account, our inherent limitations of the word. Now, when I am talking all this, suddenly I can see worry lines on a few people's faces. There's one advantage. I used to normally do all this on my phone. Today I am picking up a new skill of doing it on a laptop. Believe me, it's a new skill for me. Okay. I never use my lap for keeping a laptop. Okay. It was reserved for children. Okay. Yeah. So, now don't think naughty thoughts, okay? Now, what I'm trying to say is that people are worried. He's going so elaborately. Up to now, he's not started the definition only. He's just still playing around with the thing. Yeah, because I want you all to see these limitations very, very carefully. Otherwise, you will blindly go, yes, samjhe, lakshana vakya, lakshana say this. No. Without technicalities, so that the understanding is really drilled into you. Okay? Really drilled into you. You have this position where I am confronted with a set of words which seem like Greek and Latin. Sorry, it is Sanskrit, not Greek and Latin. That is why I know the meaning, some rudimentary meaning I know, but none of that meaning will fulfill the meaning of the word Anantam. I can't leave the word Anantam and say Satyam Jnanam. I can't leave any of the words out because that's how it is said. It's a definition, remember? You don't modify definitions. And this is from the Pramana. Therefore, you are not allowed to modify anything. So now, we have to see which meaning of the word Satyam Jnanam can fit. Which meaning of Satyam and Jnanam can fit Anantam? Is there a possibility of a meaning of the word Satyam and Jnanam which can be in harmony with Anantam? Is it possible to have a meaning like that? Because remember, for moksha there is no other go. Brahmavid param apnoti. The knower of Brahman gains moksha, not anybody else. Irrespective of what you are called, all of you have to become Brahmavids. Only then you will gain moksha. And if that is the condition, then it is not available for my perception. By everything what do I see? Sun and the moon and the sky and the stars. That's not Brahman. Remember, that is like that guy seeing all the ornaments. I am seeing all these things. ब्रह्म के नाम हमने सुना था, किन ब्रह्म क्या है मुझे ना पता. It's an old Hindi song. Okay? प्यार के नाम के, those who are into Hindi music. So, ना पता. So it's like that only. I'm in the same boat. It's not available. Even if I see it, I don't recognize it. And since those type of perceptual data is not available, my inference etc. will not work. How will it work? There is no data available about Brahman. Data is available for the sun and the moon and the stars and the trees and the lakes and the oceans and the people and all. All that data is available. But for Brahman, what data is available? Kuch nahi hai. Therefore, inference, deductive logic, inductive logic, comparison, all that will not work. All the pramanas I use in science will not work. Therefore, Vedanta is not scientific. Please don't try to make it scientific. Vedanta is not scientific because none of these pramanas will work in Vedanta. And any scientific theory has to have the possibility of failure in it. That means if you are saying Vedanta is scientific, you are saying is a possibility of failure in it. That means there is a possibility that you will not gain moksha. Then why am I wasting all my time? Pura weekend ja raha hai idhar. Therefore, the only pramana I have is Shabda. That which can reveal to me things which I don't know. And it is revealed saying Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. Upanishad is very clear. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. Yes, the Upanishad says it. These words have to be unfolded properly. It has to be unfolded. Okay. So for the unfoldment, don't worry. I still have 3 classes left. Okay. I still have. Since Swami had a very short class in the morning today, probably she can start after 15 minutes now.